Hey guys, what's going on, everybody? Today we're here with Silas. Say hi, Silas.
What's up, everybody?
We're here to talk about sealed deck and skirmish season a little bit. Silas recently played in a skirmish, and he has a pretty sweet, what I think is a pretty sweet Uzuri deck here. And we're going to kind of have Silas break that down and talk about it a little bit. And we'll kind of poke and ask him some questions here to help you better prepare for your next skirmish. So, Silas, go ahead. The floor is yours, brother.
All right, so in this event, I ended up playing Uzuri. She seemed to be my best option. I was kind of torn between her and Riptide, which we might get into later, but her ability is pretty strong, especially late game. It forces people to commit more cards, so you can easily fatigue them, and it keeps the tempo in your favor. So she has a lot of perks to it. My equipment is what I'll start with. It's not the best. My pulls for my equipment were pretty bad. The Mask of the Shifting, not the greatest card in her. It does give you a free draw, which is nice because most people don't really want to block that first dagger. They kind of are forced to, but every now and then you can slip it through. The Seeker's equipment, not really relevant in her. The instant to prevent once is nice if you're playing another assassin, but not as needed. The chess piece, the Silken G, it's okay. It is what it is. Not super relevant. And Toxic Tips, not the best in her as well, because as soon as you use her ability, you lose the effect. So you have to use it on a card you can pump over the top.
So, kind of
It
tough to
does,
make Toxic Tips work inside of Uzuri.
yeah, it is. Unless you got a lot of like attack reactions to pump something over the top, it's never going to go off. Because
So,
people,
question for
no,
you. Were there any matchups where you were looking at Toxic Tips versus the Seeker's Mitts just because Toxic Tips blocks one and it saves you a resource that you might need on your own turn? Or were you strictly looking at the Seeker's Mitts to just kind of, help opt through the deck a little bit?
the Seekers I would only use if I was looking to opt. I think the block one. I know this Seeker's Mitts plus the leggings would give me 2 prevention, but I have the one piece of mind there, so I don't think I'd want the 2 Seeker's Mitts or the 2 Seeker's Gears, because if you pitch a blue, you're not going to be able to activate both of them. And then if I pitch a blue later on or something, I'm just wasting card value. So I think the block one is more important than that extra instant.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, and then I got right here. You can see the Come to Fight, great block 3. Those pump the blues. Good. The Death Touch, good swapping for reaction. So I had a lot of good cards to swap in for reaction. You can see the Death Touch, the Destructive Deliberation, the red one especially, the 2 for 5. I did miss the Ponder token a couple times off of it because I'm not used to playing with it. So
Oh, like
this,
you mean you missed the drawing effect?
yeah, I just
Oh,
didn't get a
okay,
Ponder
gotcha.
token. This set has a lot of effects and triggers, so make sure my advice is make sure you read your cards and know what they do. Feisty Locals is a great late game one, making people block, especially when they're below the life total. It really punishes people when the decks get low. I didn't run the next generic there, the Renegades. It just doesn't really work in Uzuri, because if they're blocking a card and you swap it in, it minuses 2. So I didn't run that card. Let's see. The Ravenous Rabble, I had the full rainbow of them. That one's good because if you Uzuri it in, it keeps the go again, which is nice. So you can set your turns up to give you a little more. You can do it that way
It's
and
really
kind of,
nice because not only does it keep go again, but it also keeps his 5 power. You don't actually
yeah,
have the effect of anything, which is actually kind of nice. Ravenous Rabble, just like being a 0 for 5 with go again, is really sweet and could set you up for a really nice turn. Like you could finish off there with a cut down to size or a spring
mhm,
load. Like, you have a lot of good options here to follow up the Ravenous Rabble, which I really like.
yeah. If that was all 3 reds, that would have been better, but it's okay. The Scout I didn't play as well. Uzuri doesn't play a lot of cards from Arsenal, so that pump is kind of irrelevant. And in our sealed pool, we had only assassins, so uh, I couldn't really target Azalea or a Riptide on that one either. So I cut that. It's a block 2. It's red and yellow. I
So
didn't take it.
everybody at the skirmish was playing assassins.
Yes.
It's definitely very interesting to note
Yeah.
because I've heard a lot of people say that they really like the assassin pull in sealed more so than they do in draft, because I know in draft a lot of times you end up with normally a couple ninjas, normally a couple rangers, and some things like that. But everything I'm hearing is that people really like assassin when it comes to sealed.
I think it just gives you more options for your total cards because you can play both hybrid cards, and you can play all the generics for the most part.
Okay.
It gives you a wider pool, and where games are a lot grindier, I think I almost decked out in 2 of my games, so we were down to the last 2 or 3 cards. So they go a lot longer than in Uprising, and it's a very, very different format.
The games
And
definitely come down to the wire in this format.
yes.
That is for sure. So when we're looking at this, one of the cards, how much value did you get out of Spike with Blood Rot? Because that card really stands out to me in limited.
And Uzuri, not a lot, because it has to be on a stealth card. Now, most of the cards your attack reactioning in don't have stealth. You could just block efficiently on your turn, play a stealth, pump it over the top, but it's that one resource that it's really a hindrance.
Okay.
I found it really awkward
So
trying to
looking
max
at Spike
out.
with Blood Rot, would you definitely say that feels more of an Arachne card than it does an Uzuri card?
That's for sure an Arachne card. The block 3 is nice. I think I used it more as a block 3. Now, it is if it hits a 1 for, 5 value because it gives you the +3
Right.
and the Blood Rot Pox, but it's just awkward. The hands I had just were usually awkward, and you can't really maximize resources with Uzuri. It's hard. So you have to really focus on blocking and seeing how much damage you can dish back.
Okay. Gotcha. So one card that I really like to talk about, because you look at some of these cards and they kind of stand out to me, like as like they're all stars, like the Death
Mhm.
Touch, the Come to Fight, Destructive Deliberation, Peace of Mind. All of these cards are like almost auto includes in your deck because they're just good
Mhm.
cards. So another one that people really look at is Virulent Touch. They really like Virulent Touch.
Mhm.
How did this card stand out? And then after this, there's also one more card I want to talk about.
I think the card is really good because people will most likely block with 1 card when you play a stealth card down, even if they don't know if you have something. So if you just have a card in hand, they're usually gonna block. So are they gonna block 3 or are they gonna block, 4? It just usually most people will play a 3 block down, and then if you come over the top, you hit. And being able to pick which token really makes a difference. If it's at the end of the game and you're just trying to put them in an awkward spot, the Blood Rot's nice. If it's a ranger, the inertia token can really mess up their hand, or even the frailty. It doesn't have that. It's just blood pox.
Yeah, I was like, this is just the Pox token, but I definitely hear what you're saying. Like as an overall like value or idea, the idea that like the tokens are set up very good, very well in my
Yeah.
opinion, because Frailty is very good against Ranger. The Pox token
Mhm.
is good for applying pressure. Like the Inertia token is also very good against Ranger. And honestly, the Inertia token is good against any deck in my opinion, just
Mhm.
because it's taking away the effect of arsenaling.
Yeah. I think for the inertia is definitely the best in using it against a ranger or a ninja. Um, for
Okay.
Uzuri, it's like whatever. I wasn't going to arsenal anyhow, so it doesn't matter.
Sure, probably just gonna run out most of my cards anyway.
Yeah, the frailty token really ruins decks. I think it's very underrated in the beginning. I think people are starting to come onto it. Because the -1 on your weapons turns off both assassins and ninjas daggers, which is a big part of their game plan.
Right.
And the -1 from Arsenal really hurts Ranger, so it's really a good card.
Yeah, Frailty is a great card. So the other card I wanted to talk about here, and something I really want to get your opinion on, is Toxicity. This
Mhm.
is a card that really stands out for me, almost as a. So we're talking about Toxicity in a format where blocking and preventing a card, on hit effects is already pretty relevant.
Mhm.
So like how do you look to use Toxicity? One, to get the full value out of they lose 5 health, and second, as an Uzuri option to be played here.
So for Uzuri, it's tough with this one. I think this is one of the few cards in Uzuri you are looking to Arsenal. That in an attack reaction. So say you have this Toxicity in Arsenal and you draw stealth, any of the red stealth cards, even the yellows, you might be able to. So like that Milan there where it says the damage can't be prevented
Mm-hmm.
is really good because a lot of people are looking to play their instants to stop your damage.
Right.
So if you can arsenal that, wait for one of your stealth cards, and hopefully have a pump on the top, that's your ideal combo kind of you're looking for. Because if you play that as the assassin, everybody's just going to throw their hand. They know you're going to try to come over the top, and people will even overblock for it. So you can use it as a bait if you're trying to take tempo back, and people can really get punished for it if they get scared of it.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. One of my initial thoughts here is that toxicity probably pairs really well with the spike with blood rot that we were talking about earlier. And I know you said that it was a block 3 a lot, because toxicity and spike with blood rot, in order to be effective together, they do have to line up pretty well. It is worth noting here that you do have a yellow and a blue Razor's Edge, which is also worth talking about. Because I mean, if you the dominate one, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. Isolate. Do we have any of those in here?
I think it's down at the bottom. I don't have a lot of them. I think I drew like one blue, which is unfortunate.
So I was like, the one blue's like, honestly, not great. Like if you had a red one, that'd be a lot better. But toxicity into a red isolate, with a an attack reaction is that's a very good turn, and you can set you up pretty well.
You can sweep games with that combo.
I feel like that's definitely a corner case on how toxicity and spike with blood rot can be really used inside of Uzuri. So as we move into just kind of talking about the rest of the deck, I like Seek Horizon as a filler. You can use it as a 3 go again if you need it to be. Putting a card back on top of your deck is not great, but it is definitely an option you have. And another card that I think people are sleeping on, because I think this card is very good second cycle, is Herald. I really like this card's second cycle.
I think so. I think it can really put people in a bind, because if they see one and they'll get worried, does he have a second one? Is there another one floating around in there?
Right. I mean, and even that, like a blue Hurl is nice because it allows you to use it for your daggers and, and or different options early game. And then late game, like when your opponent's at 2 or 1, you throw this and all of a sudden they're taking a damage. Second cycle, most people's equipment is gone. Their provision effects are gone. Like they're just playing off of, blocking and doing things like that.
Yeah, it's good. I wish my pools, they're strong. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're what they could have been.
I mean, that's fair. Like you definitely have quite a few blues here that I think like could have changed things quite a bit. Like the feisty locals, you have a suite of this. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that the yellow feisty locals is still a good card because it is a breakpoint when it's defended by an action card. But obviously 3 reds would have been insane. 3 red Ravenous Rabbles would have been insane. Picking up more Prowls would have been really good because not only is it a good card, but it also buffs your next stealth play. So I mean, you have quite a few things that like definitely could improve upon. Like, and that's not your fault. You get the packs that you're dealt. It's just how it goes. So another card that stands out to me is Infectious Host. So my experience has been is that this card is a 0 for 3, 9 times out of 10. Was that your experience, or do you feel that this card has a lot better value at actually having its effect?
Most of the time, it was a 0 for 3. It wasn't very common that it would line up that I'd have a token when I had this card in hand.
Right.
If you manage that to happen, it is good. So say you could block with 3 cards. If you have all 3 blocks, just swap this down, give them a token. So that's kind of nice. But again, it's such a niche scenario that it never came up for me.
No, I completely understand that. That's been my experience too, is that Infectious Host has been more of a 0 for 3 than it has more regularly than not. It is a good card though, and I definitely think worth including. Humble, I think, is also a great card. I think that this card is a lot better against Azalea. And I think it's better against the so like it stands out as it has a good on hit effect, like one that really stands out against one of each of the classes. It's good against Benji, in my opinion, because then you can block all their cards. It stands out against Azalea because they can't dominate anything, and then it also stands out against Arachne because they don't have the ability to give their first stealth attack go again.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel like Humble really impacted your gameplay, or like really really gave you tempo in any of your games, or did it kind of just seem like a 2 for 5?
Since everybody's on a assassin and most people were on Uzuri, it really was just a 2 for 5. So say you turned off her ability, most people just played dagger into a stealth card and then arsenal.
Okay.
So it didn't really hinder them because they were probably already blocking 3, so they took 2, and then they came back with dagger and probably a red stealth card most of the time.
Okay.
So it wasn't, as bad as it could have been.
Okay. That's fair. So this is the deck that you ended up playing, with a few, exclusions. Some of the cards ended up not making the cut. Let's take a look at the rest of your pool, and we've kind of broken those down by class. Okay, so first we're going to look at your Ranger stuff. Kind of walk me through this and some thoughts you might have had around playing Ranger.
Okay, so of the 2 Rangers, Riptide is the one I was focusing on because I had a lot of generics and a lot of generic cards would go again. The Wayfinder's Crest, it's good. I think it's better than Azalea because you can basically look at your own card and opt.
Okay.
Target yourself. I do have 7 red arrows. The 2 red infection shots are the standouts in this and almost would force you to play Ranger just off that. If it was 3, if that was another red infecting shot, or maybe I had a red withering shot, I think I would have went that way.
Okay.
Because those are just so good. Even another lace, the inertia, I think it's the weakest of the laces. It is a +3, but inertia tokens, if most people are playing assassins, it doesn't really hinder.
No,
So
that's fair.
why
I mean, like
assassin.
the frailty token is like very strong, like what we were talking about earlier, and the blood rot box token is just it's forcing your opponent to either hold back a card or take 2 damage, which is very relevant. So like the Lace with Inertia is a good card, but it is the weaker of the 3. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and I think with my blue count the way it was too, my blue and yellow, since I had so many, I could probably put aim counters on everything well. So, there is the argument, I think, for playing Riptide with the pool I had.
So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 red arrows, which is not bad. 7 red arrows is not bad at all. And the 2 red infecting shots do stand out. But I have to say, looking at your deck, I can't say that I really disagree with your choice to play Uzuri so far, because like as good as the 2 red infecting shots are, and having 7 red arrows across the board is like as good as that is. This, I don't know. This feels kind of lackluster. Like, I feel like you would have gotten fatigued pretty quickly.
Yeah, that especially with everybody on Assassin and how they all had block 3s.
Yeah,
that's why I couldn't do it. My card pool would have been lower, so I just didn't think it was worth it.
Okay, so last but not least, we have your Ninja stack of cards that we were looking at. Kind of walk us through this and tell us a little bit about your Ninja pile here.
So my Ninja pile, I think, was definitely the weakest. I only have 4 red cards. So if you're looking to play Katsu and even Benji, you want some good red cards. I have the Benji specialization, the Wonder with Purpose, which is a good card. Don't get me wrong. But the one of I don't think was enough to break the deck to make it strong enough. The Surging, the Descending and the Bonds combo is nice. It's if only I had a Dishonor in there too, I would have been really tempted to run that combo then, especially with that Benji specialization. But since there's only 4 reds, I just couldn't justify it. My damage I felt like would have been so low compared to most people, and with all the block 2s, I don't think there's any way I could have either not been fatigued out or just been ran over.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the problems with Ninja is that, like if you're playing against, a more aggressive Uzuri or Arachne build and you get on the back foot pretty quick, you do have a ton of block 2s, and that can make it tough. Like your one of Peace of Mind would have been good, paired with one of the Seeker's Mitts or the Seeker's Boots or whichever one it was, to kind of help with that. But at the same time, like unless you're looking at like a red Surging Strike, Descendant Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry turn, like you don't really have a ton of firepower to throw back at your opponent and, really make it work. And, honestly, I think somebody could argue that Benji might have been the better play with, all the blues and yellows that you had here, because, there's only 4 reds in the pack.
Yeah. If you were going to play a ninja, I think Benji would have been the better one here, especially with that, specialization. But again, I still don't think that would have been enough firepower. I mean, you look at all those blues and yellows and you're maybe 10 damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's not great. Twin Twisters is cool to kind of buff up your next attack or buff up this, with Benji. But at the same time, like, I just don't see the cards here to really make the sealed pool work.
I agree. I just didn't think it had anything going for it.